It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 7, Episode 2. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
What's up, everybody?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, how are you, sir?
I am doing great, brother. How about yourself?
I am fantastic. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Coming off an exciting, electrifying weekend and finishing it off with recording another episode in our seventh season.
Crazy.
Just amazing stuff.
It's amazing. Amazing that we're 7 seasons in, and at the time of recording this, we're getting a little bit of extra airplay. It's super cool. Super, super cool, man. We had a comic put out this summer. It's been awesome.
It's a slow climb.
Yeah.
Maybe at times a dead crawl, but it's still in the right direction. We may never hit the sun, but it may hit us long before we hit it. Like you mentioned, our show is in syndication. There's best of episodes happening each week, which is pretty exciting on a newer radio station, internet radio station, but it has some numbers and it's pretty exciting. We also have select episodes, especially from Season 6, on Rumble. Anybody that wants to check that out, of course, at our website, YouTube, and every other streaming service that you can think of and don't know about. We're on there.
Hey, man, you know, it's funny, too, because every once in a while I'll come across somebody and they'll go, Cosmick Voice, right? And I'll go, yeah. Like, I'm always surprised if, you know, they go, oh, yeah, I listen. I go, what? Really? Like, sometimes it's just random. Yeah, I'll see somebody out of the show and they'll be like, oh, yeah, like, I listen. I go, really? Like, it's just amazing to me that people, like, you know, and there's no reason they should tell us that they listen, but it's cool when someone goes, oh, yeah, I listen all the time, or, you know, I remember this episode or whatever. I think it's really cool. So, I mean, listen, who we compete with? Joe Rogan? I mean, you know.
Yeah, really. I've actually had people quote things that we've said, and I go, we said that? Yeah, really? I don't know.
Do we still feel the same
way?
Yeah,
like, I'm not even sure. Like, what episode you talking about? Hey, listen, it's cool. You know, people are listening. And I mean, you know, not to toot our own horn, but last season we did win an award for a top-rated podcast. I mean, again, it's not Joe Rogan, but at the same time, that means that somebody outside of just you and I are recognizing this show. And if anybody that knows anything about the award system in musical arts or the entertainment, is you're usually paying for it. You're usually paying for the nomination. You're usually paying for the award at the end. Well, this wasn't one of them. And I was just shocked. I sent it to Chris. He was like, what? Get out of here. You're joking me.
I know.
I sent him the link. I go, I don't understand it. You know, I mean, we didn't win top, which is okay. I think
it's totally okay.
You know, we got the second tier thing, but hey, man, if 2 other people voted for us, then hey, that's fantastic. That's 2 other people that are listening and think they're getting some worth out of this banter. So thank you for that. But again, here it is, Season 7. And I know I've said this each season. I don't think we ever considered or thought that we would be 5+ years into this, 7 seasons. This was just something to get through COVID until we were able to get back into the swing. But I guess this is the swing.
Yeah, man. You know, it's funny, too, because you and I were talking, you know, between season 6 and 7. And, you know, we took the summer off, of course, you know, not to break down the fourth wall. But you and I pretty much do this every week. We do an episode. Like, over the summer, like, as the summer started to get later and it started to kind of go into September, I'm like, I really miss doing the podcast. It was cool. Like, the break was nice. But I'm like, it became part of life, right? Like, it just became part of the days we record, or, you know, just talking about what we were going to do and the next step. And other than the comic during the summer, like you just missed doing the podcast. I'm like, oh, if I'd be out somewhere at a show, I would go, I got to jot that down and remember to bring this up to Mick and, let's talk about it on the show if it makes sense. And it's cool, man. You don't realize how much you miss it till it's not there. And
yeah.
And, in one of our shows for last season, we did a little episode where we talked about other podcasts that we listened to. And, a friend of mine does a missing persons kind of a true crime podcast. And she just got, I guess within the past couple weeks, she started to get money from it because she was able to get some commercials played on her show. So she gets money, and I thought that was super cool. And she even said, I just did this for fun, just kind of get it out of her own head. She was going through some things on a personal level, and her husband was very supportive in it, and she just started to do it, and she's great at it. I mean, it's a great show, and talked about it on that episode. But now she gets commercials, and she gets paid for it, I guess, through Spotify, I guess. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure she's not making mega dollars, but she's getting something. That's super cool. So it's possible that these DIY podcasts that you and I do, it could be something. It's already been something really cool, but who knows what the future's going to bring.
Several seasons ago, you remember we syndicated the show. We were on 4 or 5 different internet radio stations.
Yeah.
So, like early on, we had this opportunity to do it. We were approached. Somebody seen the value in what we were doing. And again, we weren't really making anything from it. It was just a matter of exposure, getting it out there. So somebody was listening, something was happening. And in the process, we continued just doing our thing, our content. And, other things have come about from it in terms of, like you said, the comic book. And there's talk of us maybe taking that comic book and making it into a short animation. We'll see. That would require you and me to go into a studio and do voiceovers. But,
yes.
Hey, maybe. Listen, maybe.
Yeah.
I think there was even talk about a Comic-Con, but who knows? I don't know. Some things happen all in good time. It may take a little
Does that mean
while.
we cosplay as ourselves? Because that would be awesome.
That would be real awesome.
Just,
well, we can cosplay each other.
I was just about to say that we could cosplay each other. That would be fantastic.
That would be really fantastic. But, it's just crazy. And then here we are, like you said, last season we win some awards. So we're moving in the right direction with the show. We're providing the best content that we can. We talked about it before. This is what Chris and I have done for 40 years with each other. Just chatting it up, talking. We're at shows, whatever. This is how we talk about stuff. Now we're just sharing it with a larger group. It's still just me and him talking. And you guys listening. That's the difference.
It really is. You just don't hear the entire conversation.
That's right. There's a part where there's record and not record. So you hear the sanitized version. We now seem to have a 30-minute startup. Before we had it down to 6-10 minutes. But now, I guess as we get older and we're dealing with more things, we literally need, this morning was 36 minutes before we hit record. We had to just get ourselves in a certain state. There's a dumping period, so we don't sound so bitter. But I'm sure it does come across a little
Sometimes I think so.
Yeah.
There's a little shots during the show. You just have to listen.
Yeah. It's a lot of inside jokes, unfortunately. But I guess, like Chris said, if you're listening and somewhat aware, you may pick up on things. But
yeah. And if you know us, you know exactly who or what we're talking about.
It's a tough industry as it continues to evolve. And it's evolving sometimes not in the best ways, and it can be grueling at times, mentally grueling, even spiritually grueling. I mean, the physicality of it and all is one thing. I mean, carrying equipment, lugging it around, setting up, driving for 10 hours, whatever. That's kind of part of it. Everybody's dealing with that. But some of this other stuff, I think, can be avoided if people would just communicate better. And
well, that's something that we have that's not great in our personal lives, and not necessarily you and me personal life, just human beings in general. No one really communicates well.
No, and it's gotten worse because of social media, and we've talked about this before, puts you in a situation where you don't have to. You can just emoji it, and that's supposed to relay all this emotion or this sentiment, and some people don't totally get it. Like sometimes I've had to ask people, I go, what does this emoji mean? I don't understand. Or the abbreviations, like I don't know what some of this stuff means. I've learned what some things mean, but other things I'm like, what is this good? Is this bad? I don't know. I don't buy books on those things, and because I'm not that interested. But the communication is tough. It's tough out there. You're dealing with a band, a venue, a booking company, maybe a management company. You're dealing with the audience. There's all these different channels of communication, and sometimes they fall short. And then there's a domino effect on the other channels where maybe it shouldn't be happening, but it's happening because of the frustration that you're feeling from some of these other spots. It can be tough. It can be tough. Just to be a band, it can be tough.
It can be. It can be. And back in the day, when I was doing work with Praying Mass Entertainment, we were doing the truck, and you know this too. We would have meetings on a Monday before the Saturday or Sunday show. And it would just be one band member or two band. It could be a whole band. It doesn't matter. But we needed at least one representative of a band come and meet with us. And we would go over all the details, answer any questions. Obviously, every question is not going to be answered because sometimes things on day of show come up. But we wanted to give them, this is where you park. This is what time to be here. This is how things work and yada, yada, yada. Come to find out, day of show, we be getting questions from other members of bands. And we go, your band representative, did they not convey this? Like, I'm just going to throw this out there. Did your singer just show up to Monday and hear everything about the show and then not convey it to the band? That's why we have these meetings. The singer would go back to the band and go, okay, listen, this is what they do, and this is how these goes, and this is where we park, and this is what we pay, and blah, blah, blah. I'm amazed at how many bands back in the day did not communicate. Because in my bands, no matter any band I've been in, present or former, especially even now, we are relentless in communication. Like sometimes we overtalk. But that's just how it is. I'd rather overtalk and have everybody know too many details than not have enough detail. Even in personal work for a corporation, people sit in an office, nobody knows what's going on, yet everybody sits next to each other. There's email, there's text messages, there's phone calls. Turn to the cubicle next to you or yell across the office. Like, it's amazing to me how much communication is never done on a daily basis, bands and otherwise.
And again, with the use of social media, because not everybody uses it. Not every band member uses it. Even
That's right.
the different kinds of electronic communications, emails, and texting, and messenger, and whatever else. The thing is there isn't these one-on-one, in-person type of discussions or updates or, hey, this is what is required. A blanket message is sent out over on Messenger. Well, not everybody sees it. So bands aren't the only ones at fault. Venues are as well, so are bookers, because they limit what some places will send out emails. Yeah, I know people have emails. If you have emails, you should check it. But I hear time and time again, a lot of people don't use email. They don't check it.
No.
Well, then get rid of it.
Yeah.
But then they're almost forced to get it because they say, well, I send all my communications out on email. Okay, well, here's an email, but I don't check it.
Yeah.
Now, again, some people use that as an excuse because I've seen that quite often. The guy shows up or a band shows up. Oh, I don't check my email. Well, whose fault is that? Especially when you're told that it's going to come out that way. But at the same time, what you're saying, there should be some interaction, some one-on-one phone call. I've talked to venue owners and bookers on the phone, even today in 2024. Sometimes that's way easier than texting it out, typing it out. Some things can get lost in translation. Here, let me just get right to the point. What do I have to do?
Yeah.
We're going back because sometimes with this electronic communication, we dance around the subject or we sugarcoat or just doesn't come out clear. So I think that as often as you can, and we talked about it from season 1, it betters communication, it strengthens the connection.
Yeah.
Because if you can do
definitely.
that, I just recently played a show in an area that I hadn't been to in 3+ years. But I have managed to stay in connection, especially with this one contact, consistently. One really great guy. So I want to communicate with him. But at the same time, I keep him privy to what the band is doing or where he could be a part of it and all that kind of stuff, so that when we do see each other actually in person, it doesn't feel like we're strangers. We just pick up where we left off, and we're happy to work with one another.
Right.
And it really does help. Do I use electronic communications? Yes, I'm sure you do too. It's the convenience of the world. It makes it a lot easier. It's not like I'm traveling back and forth to California just to talk to one person, or to New York, or even to the closest town. No, you make use of the technology, just like we talked about digital recording and things like that. But at the same time, if you're looking for lasting connections that really make an impact and can help keep that ball rolling, the wheel turning, well, then better communication is what is required. And it doesn't matter your age. I mean, actually, sometimes I know as older musicians in the scene, we often complain about the younger artists and their lack of, or their inability, however you want to look at it, however you want to call it, to communicate with the other bands. Like there's an entitlement, they just go in, do their thing, and they leave. But I see it with the older bands too. And there's an air of attitude. They have an entitlement too. Like, oh, I've been around, I do this, I do that, I'm so-and-so of so-and-so. I don't know, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, right? But that doesn't negate the fact that we should just be talking to each other.
Right.
I mean, there's all this, like, especially now in the climate, there's all these signs and people are talking that, you know, we need to show love and harmony and be friends with each other and, you know, try to get along and all that kind of stuff there, Rodney. But at the same time, it's not really happening. I mean, a sign is one thing. What does a sign do? It's become an outward display of, oh, I'm in the good crowd because this is what I'm doing, but you're not doing it yourself anyway.
Yeah.
So you can't, as musicians, you can't go up on stage and talk about, oh, thanks to all these great bands that are here, go buy their merch and all. That, for a lot of people, it becomes a shtick. Because as soon as they get off stage, they don't want nothing to do with you. They're so hot to handle that, my God, you touch it, you're melting. Because you're not good enough to hold the candle to help melt. So, you know what happens? Bands then just focus solely, 100% on themselves. Which, you know, in reality is where things are at, because we talked about it before. If you're not focusing on yourself, if you don't put your mask on first, you're not going to be able to help somebody else. That's it. And I find that, and we've talked about this before, in life in general, and it's no different with the music business, if you're successful and you're comfortable with it, you don't mind helping other people. You don't mind giving an extra hand or lending this and that. It's when you aren't, and you're putting on fronts, that you, at every turn, will try to sabotage, take over, whatever, you fill in the blank with other bands and artists. And that's going to segue into kind of what we're going to talk about in today's topic. But you see it all the time. When you are comfortable in where you're at, and we talked about this from season 1, success is determined by what you feel is correct. Then you don't mind backlining for people you don't know.
Right.
You don't mind cutting your set to help the entire night. You don't mind flip-flopping if it really benefits the show, or giving kudos to somebody who truly deserves it, both on the talent, the merit of their talent, or the merit of their hard work out in the scene. Yeah. We talked about this before. You don't have to be the best. Goes back to what I said, you know, the quote with John Lennon about Pete Best and Ringo Starr. You know, Pete was a good drummer, but Ringo Starr is a great Beatle. You can look at that in 100 different ways, but it's about whatever it is in that situation that uplifts everyone. Everyone. Yep. I'm just going to get off my soapbox, and we can go right into the, unless you have something to add to that, I'm going to get right into the topic, baby.
You know, you couldn't have, honestly, you couldn't have said it better. Communications is key. We've talked about it before, and even when we had Pam Aloy on a season or 2 seasons ago, like she said the same thing, communication is key.
Absolutely. I need a stepladder. I climbed way too high on that soapbox. So just give me a second. Let me get down here.
It's Russ the Boss.
Take it down.
Johnny D from Britney Fox.
This is Stephen Pearcy from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
All right, the topic of this show is professional jealousy. Does it exist? Is it real for artists? Professional jealousy, does it exist? And is it real for artists? Chris, what do you think, buddy? Is it real? Does it exist? Have you experienced it?
It is real. It exists. And yes, I have experienced it. Now, whether this person knew it or not, I have experienced it. So when we talked about what we were going to do on today's episode, I just kind of wanted to give a little brief description of jealousy. So it is a complex emotion that can involve feelings of anger, insecurity, envy, resentment, and suspicion. It can arise when someone feels that something it can arise when someone feels that something they have or want is being threatened by another person or thing. Jealousy can occur in many types of relationships, including romantic, sibling, and coworker. I think the jealousy kind of, it always says that it comes from a place of fear or anger, right? I see it all the time, and I experience it all the time. I've been experiencing it for years. Unfortunately, I experience it from some people in bands that I have considered friendly, on a friendly basis. Perfect example. They couldn't tell me how the show really was, because they didn't want to know that their show wasn't as great as the show I just did. So they'd be like, oh, our show was great. And there's a band that I haven't talked to in a long time, but I was frequently sharing the stage with them a lot. You know, they would go and do things, you know, on the road or whatever, and the singer would come back and be like, oh my God, the tours were great, the shows were packed. And I'm like, I know they weren't. And it's okay. Like, you don't have to just be honest. You don't have to lie to me. But they didn't want to seem less than what the things I was doing was. And listen, let's be fair. I've done some amazing things in my career, but I'm also not blind to the fact that I got to do a lot of amazing things because I was in a band that had been around for 35 years with a name. I am fully aware of that. It wasn't because I was this amazing singer. We had great stuff. We put out great stuff together. But I understand that I was in a band that had a lot of years. So yes, of course we got to do really amazing things. Like, they didn't look at it that way. They looked at it like we were some, which I guess you'd kind of call us a local band, sure, but we didn't play a lot locally because we were busy doing, you know, we were busy traveling and playing all these shows. But bands would, you know, some bands would look at it and go, oh, you know, they didn't look at it that way. You know, it was immediately this jealousy thing. And I'd be like, you can't be, I understand it because I can't tell people how to feel because that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But understand that it's only because of this situation that we got to do this thing. So I understand the thought of being jealous, but don't be, because it's not that we're better than you, or it's not that you guys will or would never get those same opportunities. I am in the situation where these opportunities come into play. So I would see jealousy all the time, even with guys in my band that were amazing or are amazing players. People would be like, oh, he's in your band? I'd be, yeah. And I go, oh, that's cool. Like, you can instantly see it on their face. They're like, damn, he's playing with them. It's just, I see it all the time, and I still see it to this day, and it's amazing to me. Amazing to me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I've never felt that way, because very, very long ago, back in the day, this was a lot of part of my drummer's fault too, because he was really the jealous guy, and I kind of took that from him because we were so close at the time. We would just bitch together, but we would go, oh my God, like, look, this band got this show, and this band, how'd they get this show? Like, that they suck, and we're better than them, and how they get. And then I realized later in life, listen, you know, does it suck professionally? Of course. Like, I would love to get those shows, but as I get older, I realize maybe the universe is telling you not to do that show. Maybe there's a reason the universe is telling you not to do that show. Or maybe a band just has better luck or opportunities than you do. It's just how it is. It's the way of the world. Same thing with jobs, same thing with life. It's just some people just get better breaks than others. And do I understand the jealousy part? Of course I do. I don't want to say it's an empty emotion, but it really kind of is, because it's not going to change. You're wasting your energy. And you'll feel way better if you're just happy for that person or that band, especially if you like them personally. Even if the band's not the best band in the world, they don't have to be. If they have that opportunity, be happy for them. Who cares? Like, it's awesome that they get to do that thing, because really, and we've talked about this before, you never know what's coming your way. And I think of it this way too. I go, listen, if I'm super stoked for this band and there's a genuine love between both bands, and you don't know what's going to happen. One band could take the other band somewhere. That's how I grew up. That's how we grew up. I mean, honestly, like, back in the scene, it was always about bringing that band up. I mean, Jovi did it, and, you know, like, it's just how it was. I mean, so I don't understand that jealousy, because if you're honest, it's better to be honest. If the show wasn't great, who cares? It is what it is. It doesn't matter, because not every show is going to be awesome, and there's no reason to be jealous because one person's show is better than yours. Who cares? It's a good thing. It's a good thing to support people and be happy for other people. Who the hell wants? I don't want to live like that. I'd rather be happy. I mean, I get it. I totally, again, because I can't argue with people's emotions and how they feel about things, but I would much rather be happy that people get great opportunities than to not. I'd love to see great things happen to great people. I mean, that's how it should be. It's how it is. Would I love some of the same opportunities? Of course. But maybe the universe just is setting me up for something else. I don't know. I just never understood it. I feel like it's a wasted thing to do. I think we're stronger if we support each other in a positive way. And I know that sounds all hippy dippy, but I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth.
I agree. First off, I'm going to say that for the longest time, I was really not aware of that type of sentiment. Basically, what I'm saying is I guess I never really paid attention to it. Could have been my OCD, could have been just, hyper focus. I'm not exactly sure. I never really spent that time.
What weren't you aware of?
Well,
the jealousy aspect?
Yeah, I understand what jealousy is, and I get it. But as I've mentioned before, and everything that we had to do, especially back in the 80s with the band that I was in then, we had to do on our own. And we just figured that was our situation. That was what we had to do. If we seen something that another band had, then we said, okay, we're going to work towards that. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with going, how did that band do that? Does that demonstrate jealousy? No. In a sense, it's putting it out there in, the think tank type of thing. Like, how do we do that? So I guess for a lot of years, it was frustration I was feeling. Like, okay, so I started to turn it around and going, and listen, I'm not saying that I'm perfect because I'm not. I have a lot of other, and if you've listened to this podcast, I have a lot of other issues. Okay? So I would go, okay, how did they do that? I'd like to do that, and I got to go figure out a way. But I guess I was always at a point where it's like I realize that, hey, listen, they're a great player, or they have this. Maybe I need to work on that, whatever. Could I feel some of that? Yeah, I'm sure I did. And believe it or not, it was with a conversation with you many moons ago that we started talking about that. And I was like, wow, maybe, yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I sometimes always took the high road by saying, well, I'm trying to find the best in humanity, right? Like that idea about insanity, you kind of repeat the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I go down that road with a particular person or something, not really realizing that maybe that person was actually hindering us or sabotaging us.
Yeah.
And maybe I was a bit naive. I'm not afraid to say it. Like, because sometimes that passion, that excitement for what you're doing blinds you. A lot of artists are guilty of that. Oh, I'll pay. I'll put the money out. Because your passion goes, I got to have that. That's that ego, right? The fear of not having it. But once I really became, and I started seeing it, and you know what? The funny thing is some of the first things that I seen was internal of the jealousy, as you were talking about. Yeah. And that really threw me for a loop, saying, well, wait a minute. I mean, we're on the same team here. Why would, whatever I'm doing, what you think I'm doing individually, I'm actually doing for the whole.
Right.
Years and years ago, out of the blue, I was asked to play with some particular people. Whether it was going to be long-term, whether it was to help write some songs, whether it was just a studio thing, I don't know. Because, unfortunately, it never really panned out anyway. But being excited that I was, okay, now I was in a band. I've always been committed to one band at a time.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Well, my thinking was, oh, man, I get part of this. This will help my music with my band.
Yeah.
Right? The band that I'm in. Well, I mean, I caught kind of flack about it, about how to do this and why you should be doing that, or, and I was like, oh, it's kind of, So even when I did it, when I went to do it, as excited as I was, I had this reservation. I was already reserved, and there was always this state of mind. Sabotaged it myself because of
the whole thing,
right, and not knowing it.
Yeah.
From that point forward, I was like, well, I can't address it like this. This is not right. But I continued to experience that, as many people do. And then I guess once that really opened up my eyes to see, hey, this is a bigger development than I was maybe really aware of. And again, that could have went back to tunnel vision. Not ego in a sense, because anybody that really knows me at 5'4", there's not much ego, man. I know there's sometimes that short man's disease. I basically don't have it. I'll be the first person to tell you. You know what I mean? Yo, those pants are too long for me, man. I got to either roll them up or get them cut. Okay? So, can I have a step ladder, please? Because this is hurting me. Once I became aware of it, it was kind of debilitating at times. Like, oh man, I'm not exactly sure what to do about this, how to handle this. And like, as you said, I was always somebody who, in my mind and my thinking, is like, all right, if I can get this ball rolling, I'm bringing these guys in. This is the way to do it. Someone's got to open the door. Someone's got to get this kick started.
Yes. Yep.
I do that today.
Yes, you do.
Right? You and I just had a little interview a couple weeks ago, and I says, Chris, I love to keep things in-house. And by that, I mean, I like to work with people that I know will deliver and that I like.
Agreed.
And that I feel comfortable with, because I want the accolades to come to them too. Listen, who wants to share in the goodness by themselves? It seems kind of crazy. Like, who am I going to turn to? That's pretty lonely, right? I want to, at the bottom, it's not very lonely either, but it gets to be miserable. But I want to bring everybody up, man. Then we can do more. Then we can be excited about it. I will say that over the years, and you and I have talked about this off air and a little bit on air, there's a bit of jadedness that starts to develop over time.
Yeah.
And I am reserved about now who I open myself up to and give that opportunity. Because, you know how you said, I remember in the 80s, you would connect with bands and then you would run it together. I got to have my boys on, got to have my boys on. Even though you and I are different styles, we talk throughout the year, and we at least do a couple shows each year. I would do more if we could. It's not as easy. It's getting harder. In this band that I'm in currently, early on in the career, because of the connections I made, I did that with several bands. And
me too.
I got burned every time.
Yeah.
Things seem good, but then they either think that they're better than, or that they did this completely on their own. Listen, they did. Yes. They agreed to do it. They got up on stage. I didn't play for them. And in that process, you know, even if somebody's helping you, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
So you're developing this rhetoric in a way to stand on your own. But it's a collaboration. And I got burnt, and they did some really bad, nasty things, and I just dropped. I said, that's it, I'm done. Instead of putting it out on social media, because no one will ever know who those bands are.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm going to move forward. Yep. That's when I really started to see that, man, listen, I always knew it was cutthroat, and you're always going to have that one or two. But then you overlook it. It's that one apple that ruins the bunch. Well, you just throw that apple out. But unfortunately, it could be in every apple. It could be in every apple. Even today, I just try to avoid it as much as possible. And what now frustrates me is that when I am seeing it, some people they're not even hiding it anymore.
No.
It's literally, it's like they're taking a bulldozer and using that as a way to ruin or curtail, sabotage, hold back, block, whatever, other people's opportunity.
I'll give you a perfect example of this. My band got asked to do a really great show at a great venue, which was guaranteed to be packed. We couldn't do it. I got asked to do it. We couldn't do it. So I said, I know who I can trust to fill that spot, because the headlining band asked me to help them out. And I chose you guys because I know I could trust you. The business would be right. Like, I know everything you guys would do would also then put me in a good light. Like, I could be trusted because I could trust you guys. And you guys killed it. You guys had an amazing show. And then your merch table was packed. Now, obviously, you guys played. You did hard work. But at the end of the night, I could go, like, obviously, I was super excited for you guys. But, like, you guys are on stage and you're killing it. And the whole time I'm going, I did this. Like, this is what I did for them. Obviously, you guys were you guys did the work. You guys put out the music. You guys did the set. People loved you, and that's what matters the most. But in my head and in my seat, I go, that's killer because I did that. Like, I put these guys in this position to be successful. And that's a better feeling than any kind of jealousy ever. That whole feeling. And again, I understand the feeling. I do, because we're all passionate. We all want to be the next big thing. We're all trying for these things, but you and I have talked on this podcast a million times. What's it? Is it less than 2%? 2% that make it? We're all just trying to sell some music, sell some CDs, sell some shirts, play some great shows, and hopefully be able to do things that, we've always dreamed of doing, but that doesn't happen for everybody. And for the people that do get to do it, that's amazing. You just got to stay in your own lane and do your thing and try as hard as you can try. Like, it was perfect what you said. How do I get to that spot? All right, well, let's figure this out. Listen, I've had messages from a lot of people. Hey, I saw you guys are playing this. How did you get this show? I'll tell you how I got the show. I'm not holding back any secrets because you could do the same kind of work. Listen, I'll give you the contacts, and that's fine with me. And what happens now, I'm not going to give the contact to everybody because I don't trust everybody. But people that I do trust, I go, hell yeah. All right, you know what? I'll make the call. and I'll say, hey, listen, this person's going to be contacting you. Do what you want to do. If it works out, great. If not, that's okay too. Listen, man, I'm just trying to help. I think it just makes the scene stronger and better. And I don't understand that feeling of jealousy with other bands. As passionate musicians, I understand it, but I can't relate to it because it doesn't make sense to me.
Exactly.
You are listening to The Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
I think that there's a misconception of we all want to have that great show. You know what? A long time ago, especially in this business, if you were around in the 90s, the metal that I was doing disappeared. Like, clubs didn't even want you. Like, they just didn't, and if you were put on a bill and found out that you were a metal band, you were asked not to be on the show. So it was difficult. And I've played in front of packed houses, like the Troc packed. And then I played in front of a club where it was just us and the sound man at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And sometimes within the same week. A great show has nothing to do necessarily, and this could be debatable, with the crowd. Did you put on a show that you felt good about your playing? The music, the sound, right? Because you go back over the Beatles story, whether you like the Beatles or not, whether you think that they were, revolutionary or not, doesn't matter. But their time in Hamburg helped them hone. They were literally playing 8 hours a day with 1 day off. Yep. Yes, they had breaks, but they were background musicians. They were a jukebox.
Yeah.
And they were playing everything from dance stuff to pop stuff to old blues to their own stuff. They were even doing jam sessions. They learned how to play, hone themselves in.
Yeah.
Locally, the singer from Heaven's Edge talked about in an older interview, because of the scene back then, you were able to play 3-4 times a week in different places, and you were drawing crowds. But he said it was such a training ground. He goes, we may have not have been the greatest musicians at the time. I'm paraphrasing to get through this.
Yeah.
But that ability to play in front of people, often you started honing your chops.
Right.
So every time you play should be looked at as an opportunity to play a great show, whether the people show up or not.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
always told my guys that's the way we need to do this. Because otherwise, what's the point of doing it? Then we don't really like doing it.
Right.
Because a lot of times, like when we rehearse, like it's as exciting for me. It's like I'm still connected to these songs. That's what's important.
Right.
In my experience, jealousy is usually a direct result, or the reason being is because that person or persons refuse to do the work needed. Jealousy and laziness go hand in hand. Oh, how'd they get the show? I should get that show. Well, if you wanted that show, why don't you go for it? Why don't you do what you need to get for it? I've made no secrets about it. I advertise it. I've gotten endorsements over the years. Some of the endorsements have been fantastic. Some have not been so great, but I support them all the same. Every time I've gotten an endorsement, I will get a message or 10. Hey, how can you hook me up with that endorsement? Hey, I need to get that kind of show. Or, hey, I need to get that string, and I need some strings and stuff, And I've also heard, even from people that are real close to me, when can I start getting some cases and stuff like that? I'm like, you sometimes laugh it off, or sometimes I find that I downplay it just so I can kind of not have to deal with it. And then other people, you're direct with them. It's like, hey, man, I says, I get what you're saying, but it's not just a freebie here, right? It's not like I'm Slash. I go, I have to put in some things for some of these endorsements. Listen, nowadays, some of these endorsements are just BS. You're just getting a discount. Like, everybody and their mother gets an endorsement. That's the new model for people to sell products, especially boutique product. But when you have more of a brand name, yes, nobody's giving free stuff away unless you're Slash or Ozzy. But you do get a high discount that makes it affordable for musicians on a budget. But at the same time, you have to support the cause. It has to be included in this. You also have to do so many shows a year. Every year I say I'm only going to do 10 shows, and 30 shows later, that kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
But if you ever look at my posts for the band, and I'm not trying to sell my website or my Facebook page, but it's testament to what I'm talking about, especially on the bigger posts, my endorsements, my sponsors, the people that are backing us, helping us, they're always mentioned because that's part of the deal. It's a partnership. It's a symbiote. Can't be one-sided. Like you said, no relationship can be one-sided. It's not a relationship then, is it?
Yeah, right. Right.
So I have found that a lot of this jealousy, especially in our industry, it's in any industry, it's because of laziness, the lack of ability to get up off their bottom and do what's needed. Because it does take time. And in the beginning, it is rigorous. It's time consuming. It can be frustrating, aggravating. It's a collection of data. Again, get contacts. Well, start scouring. Get out there. Get this collection. It doesn't happen overnight. You got to put the time in. I've built a list for this band over the last 15 years. I'm still building it. And I have to go through it because some of those things that were even 5 years ago, they're no longer valid. And if you're going to keep moving forward, then you have to stay on top of it. That's the other thing. Maintenance is really the hard part. Sometimes doing those initial steps, it's time consuming, but it can happen. But it's the maintaining. And I've learned something, and I just had a conversation about 3 times just in the last couple months in this same thing, that in this business anymore, if you can get 3 to 6 months of positive engagement from a partnership or a connection, that's fantastic, because most of the time in this business, 3 to 6 months is the max. Because people quit, they give up, they're like, this is too time consuming. I mean, the thing is the longer you do it, and you know this, Chris, the longer you do it, the more involved you have to be. Because you have to keep yourself at a certain level. If you don't want that level, I get it. I understand it.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about it and you're whining about it, there's been plenty of guys our age that I'm at shows and they're whining about stuff. Listen, I do my share too. I get into the little bit. It's just a thing. You have to sell it that way sometimes. I get it. And sometimes, even today, I still downplay things because I know there's that jealousy. And then all of a sudden you're in a room and everybody's trying to show their scars bigger. Okay, well, there you have it, man. Because at the end of the day, you know what's what. But the maintenance part of this is hard. It's hard. Not every show's going to be Madison Square Garden. Actually, no show's probably going to be Madison Square Garden. Not at this
that's
level.
For sure.
No. But every show could be solid. There could be a goal every show. Hey, let's really work this song in. Or let's try something new. There's some shows that I know right off the bat, I sign on and I know they're not going to be what you would hope they're going to be. But I then look at it as an opportunity to, like Friday night, I did a show. I knew what it was going to be. It turned out well. But I said, let's throw this song in. This is the perfect place to throw it in. If it works, fantastic. Then we know we can move forward with it. If it doesn't, hey, so what? Most people won't even know the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
But nowadays, I don't even give it the precedence. You can't give it an audience, otherwise it will frustrate you. I could understand how that can be challenging for new artists.
Yes.
But the thing is if you go into it like that, you're developing a culture that it's not good because you're going to implode, and then your career's cut short because you cut it short.
Yeah. Yep. Over what?
Over nothing. That's something that
Over
you could have
nothing.
done, and like you said, maybe it wasn't meant to be. Like shows that I've worked hard to get, I tried so hard, and then at the end I go, we should have really got that show. Everything that we put in place should have got that show. We were in a perfect fit. Hey, okay, but guess what? Something else opens up. Yeah. So, I mean, like you've talked about this before, it may not happen the way you expect it to happen, hope it to happen. Now you're available for this opportunity that, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah. Well, it's because your hard work is paying off. And that's where this should be. And again, success is determined by you, not somebody else who thinks that they know what success is. And a lot of people that think they know what success is have no success. They're armchair rock stars. There's tons of them in this business, especially online. And fans, I love the fans, but man, sometimes they think they know the business. There's a lot of people, just because you're around the band all the time, or you've traveled with the band, or helped them out or whatever, it's not the same thing, man. Because you could walk away from it and not be affected the same way that the artist or the band is.
Yeah.
I don't know, buddy. You got anything else you want to add?
No, brother. That's it. That's it.
All right. Like Chris said, stick to your guns. Do what you got to do. Help the scene by helping other people. Nothing screams success than helping somebody else succeed. If you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmicvoice.com. Step into the Cosmickverse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmicvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice. You can find The Cosmick Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Mick and I would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of The Cosmick Voice. And you can get in touch with us through thecosmicvoice.com and, of course, all of the Cosmick Voice social medias. Take care and be safe.
You're listening to the Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.